Hello, my friends, and welcome to a brand new episode of Discourse in Magic with Gaetan Bloom. Gaetan Bloom is an incredible magician. Not only is his magic fantastic, but he is a creator of the likes that you have never seen. If you have ever seen his books, if you've ever read his books, if you ever bought any of his magic, you'll realize that not only is it strong, but also the methods are brilliant. He has come up with so much incredible magic, and he is such an incredible performer, and his story is even cooler. And in this episode, we learn about how he is so gosh darn creative and how you can be creative too. He talks about how he comes up with ideas, where he gets his ideas, how he creates, how he makes, what his workshop looks like, how he gets inspiration, and his story as to how he became the legend that he is today. You are going to learn so much from Gaetan Bloom. This was a man on my list for years, and I am grateful that he not only showed up for an amazing interview, but also delivered something that I will never forget for the rest of my life, and you won't either. So please enjoy an incredible episode with the one and only Gaetan Bloom. Hello, my friends, and welcome to a brand new episode of Discourse in Magic. I am here with the one and only Gaetan Bloom. How are you?
I'm fine, Jonah. I am fine.
I am so excited to chat with you about magic and creativity and inventing and so many parts of magic. I've loved your stuff for the longest time and really excited to get into it. Let's start at the very, very beginning, which is, how did you get started in magic? How did magic find you?
Well, like many other friends, with a magic kit set. And I was very disappointed first because, I'd found, oh my God, is that magic? It's just a black flap in a cardboard box. So I was really, oh, okay. And then I saw, in fact, a magician in an hotel. I was very young. I was like 8 years old and on holiday. And I saw a small poster, saying, tonight, the big magician, blah, 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 in this hotel. He was acting in the hotel. So I went with my mother, and wow. And it was a full show, 1.5 hour show, and I was so happy to see that. And I said, I want to do that. That's what I want to do. That's it, period. And yeah, in fact, the guy did 3 nights because in the village, was 3 different hotels, big one. So he did the 3 of them, and I went to each of them. I took my mother, say, I want to see again. I want to see again. And really, I started, when I saw this guy, he was not great. He was okay. He was okay, but he was doing a full night show, And, at that time, it was in the 60, something like that. So he had just like a threefold screen to hide himself,
Yeah.
And he had a small tapas, like to put records,
Yep.
classical music and all that, And then he said, and in the second part, you will see the fakir so and so. I said, so everybody was waiting for the fakir, to do very oriental magic. And then he went behind the screen, and you hear the music different, and then he came back with a outfit. He had just something on his head, and he was doing the knife through the arm, the needle swallowing. But he was just, again, of course, it was him, but it was such a funny thing to see this old man. He was an old man by the time, just changing himself, removing the tuxedo and the thing to put the Indian turban.
So where did it go for you from there? So obviously you said you were like 8 or 9 and you saw magic, and then what? Did you find magic stores, magicians?
Well, then from this show, I received, because there was a small competition on the third day. I knew all the questions, all the answers. So I won a special deck of cards. And in this deck of cards was from Mayette. I didn't know Mayette, but it was from Mayette. And then my mother tried to find where was this Mayette shop, in Paris. We knew it was. And eventually we found it. And then it was, wow, my God, I just discovered, Mayette at the time was the only magic shop in Paris,
Wow.
and very old magic shop. Now it's owned by Dominique Duvivier, but at
Yeah.
the time it was Mr. Mayette, still the owner. And for me to discover this shop was like Harry Potter, when he enters a wall, shoo, wow,
Mhm.
was a shop made for us, And
So,
so it was the start.
so I know you said that when you saw the show, you were like, this is what I want to do with my life. Did you end up doing anything else? Did you end up doing or did you go to school? Did you go, or you just, this was it?
Yeah,
Magic
I
was
went to
everything.
school. I went to school. The thing is that I wanted to do that, and my parents were working for the government, nothing funny, nothing fancy. And my mother's hero was a lawyer, a big lawyer, advocate,
Yeah,
very
yeah.
well known. And I found in a newspaper that his real passion was to do magic. So starting with that, it was easy because I told my mother, you see, this guy is your big hero, but he loves to do magic. Oh, okay. So from that moment, the magic was a carrot. So if
So,
if I had good notes at the school, it was okay. I could have visit to the shop.
So a couple of questions about sort of where it goes from here. The first is I'm always very interested in the like business and the economics of magic, especially when you don't know anything else. So maybe you're 16, 17, you do a show, a gig, or whatever. How were you thinking about it? Because when you think of even now, you think of magic as a career, like it's crazy. It's crazy to do. What were you
Yeah.
thinking at 16, 17, 18, or whenever it happened for you? Where are you thinking about
Oh,
making money?
at that age, I was already doing not many shows, but I started really to perform when I met Dominique Webb in the second magic shop. It was 3 years later, and because he was giving lessons. And there I met my real teacher, Jean Merlin, who teach me everything in magic. But very early, I was so young, I was 12, 13. I came behind the counter, and started to do some demos
Hmm.
for Dominic Webb freely. It was just because I love to be there.
Hmm.
And so at one moment, he just said, why don't you go in a big shop and sell tricks for me, during holidays? Because, of course, I had not the age to have a real contract, but it started like that, and more and more. And I think it's the best way to learn. When first, so I had no money from that, but he gave me books, he gave me tricks, and etc. etc. So very early, I had my finger in the fact that I was dealing tricks, and I was already not creating tricks, but creating different presentation for existing tricks. That was
And
a real big.
where did it go from there for you with respect to shows? Like, did you start doing kids shows? Did you start doing, what was the next step for you?
Yeah, then the next step was to eventually enter a magic group, and the FFAP at the time, and what was two different clubs. And my mother was always very helpful with this thing in mind. And say, okay, okay, we apparently want to do that, and he's pretty good at that, so let's help him, you know. And but I never had any other job, never. So I'm not to choose, I recognize that now, or maybe it's even more difficult because if you have a steady job and you know what you are going to make for the rest of your life, or to jump in becoming a magician. Some people, they are very upset, or they don't know if they have to be part-time or full-time. But I never had really to take this decision. It was from the beginning, shoom, I want to do that, you know?
Wow.
And my parents were okay with me. I was living home, you know, and I left them when I was 20 something, but that's it.
Was there anything proactive that you did at the time to get shows or TV appearances, or was there anything you were doing like, okay, I'm going to email all these people, or I'm going to call all of these people, or it just happened from you being popular?
No, I started to be like the new young guy with funny ideas in the club, you know, because I was 13, 14.
Yeah.
I was thinking how to do an act for the next convention or something, you know. So I was the new guy on the thing. And then very early, I met during this French convention. I met very interesting people, and I met quite early Albert Goshman, you know, people like that. And then I met Ken Brook in England, and
Mm.
this was the start really of going. I mean, to be known as a kind of underground guy, you know, because Ken Brook, I knew Ken Brook because when I was 16, I'd been across Abracadabra. It was an English magazine,
Yep.
weekly magazine, incredible. And Ken Brook was putting ads in not every week because it was very costly, and so I discovered his way to sell things, and from he had not thousands of tricks, but very few tricks, but from Fred Capps, Finn John, I mean the top of the top, Don Allen from America, many Top Gun guys, you know. And so eventually, when I was 18, I had the chance to go to London for the first time, you know, and to meet him. And it was like an instant friendship, you know. And he took me literally under his arm, you know. And then I started to learn English because before I was
Wow.
not really speaking properly English, you know.
Wow.
And then I found, you know, one of my most famous trick is the standing card trick. It was the two cards and
Hmm.
one stand. And when I show this to Ken as something new, he said, "Wow, my God, this afternoon somebody is coming, and I want you to show him that." And say, "Wait, yes, of course, who is that?" A Di Vernon. I said, "Wow, oh my God, Di Vernon? Are you kidding me? No, 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 no." And so I
Wow.
did it to Di Vernon, and I fooled him. And he told me, "Oh, you fooled me, you fooled me, you fooled me." And when I explained it, wow, he was so happy. And so few years after that, I went to the Magic Castle, and Di Vernon took me under his arm, you know, and the castle and say, "Do your trick right there. Do the trick to Larry Jennings. Do the trick," like a baby it was, you know. So I've always been very lucky in this respect, you know.
It sounds like you've been very lucky to have a lot of mentors that, recognize
Yeah.
your magic and helped take you to the next level and the next step. Who are some of the ones, I know you mentioned a few already, but who are some of the people in your journey that really helped you the most, both with your magic and with your...
Well, one is obviously Jean Merlin. I told you about him, and now is a huge friend and still a mentor and whatever. Another one is James Hodges. James Hodges, you know, I had an affair with one of his daughters. One of my first fiancée was her, you know, and for 3 years we were together, and then we split. And really, it's my first idea was, oh God, I won't see James again. So I was very sad with that. But he said, no, kid, life is life, but you will always be like my son. So it's okay. And James did all my drawings for all my tricks
Ah,
all his
wow.
life. If you have my books,
Of
it's
course.
all, and he's not really, he deserved much more because James knew how to do drawings, but he was a ventriloquist, he was a magician, he was a multi-talented man, really.
Wow.
And he left us a few years ago now, and I still miss him every day. Yeah.
Wow.
And of course, another very influential man for me was Finjon. When I met Finjon, I met Finjon thanks to Ken Brook, because Ken Brook was selling some tricks from Finn, like the floating flute and one trick called esoteric. Esoteric was a wonderful haunted pack, but
Mm.
done a very special way because you could put the deck on the floor, and three people choose a card and the card roll out of the deck and blah blah blah. But you are far away from the thing. You have not the deck in your hand, and was no electronic, of course. Was a very very good use of thread, And when Ken Brook saw me, he said, "Oh, I know you are in Paris. You live in Paris. I will make a few words and go to the Crazy Horse, and you will meet this guy. He's working at the Crazy Horse right now." And I did that, and it was Finjon. So I went for him at the exit. It was 2 o'clock in the morning, and he said, "Oh, Ken Brook. Oh yeah, okay, let's have a drink." And he took me for a drink on the Champs Elysees. And I was 18 years old at the time, and then after a few drinks, everything started to float on the table. The bills, the thing, the piece
Oh
of
my
bread,
gosh.
whatever. I said, "Oh my God!" The guy was not waiting for me. He was ready. He was ready to make anything float. And of course, this was way before ETR, real, anything like that. It was ever before at the time he had not invented the elastic invisible thread,
Wow.
but he was already working a lot with threads, and he really he opened my mind to a complete new world for me. Yeah.
I want to talk more about threads in a minute. It's a whole section I want to talk
Okay.
about
Okay.
with you. But
Yeah.
let's go back and talk a little bit about creativity. I've interviewed obviously many magicians, and I've found that often it's the magicians that don't have magic books or magic shops or anything where they grew up that are the most creative because they don't have the resources and they start coming up with their own things. But it sounds like you had both. You had a great actual magic education, but then, you started to come up with, magic and presentations and things that magicians haven't seen before. What did that look like for you? Was there a practice like, okay, I'm going to spend this amount of time or I'm going to spend some time every day working? Is it just you're jamming and you say, what about this? What about that? Like why were you so creative at a young age and maybe others were not?
I think it's just because I was curious. I was one of the real key to be creative, I think, is to be curious about things and always wanting to know more. If something is how it works. All my toys, I had to break them to see how it works inside. If not, I was not happy. And so as soon as I knew that were some magic books with secrets, I wanted to have some of them, and also I very early found that I was a lot in love with old books already. As soon as I could put a hand on an old book, I'd say, "Oh, it smells good." That's something now it's gone because most of the thing are done with PDF or whatever, and you have not this feeling, you know. You don't have this anymore. Like I remember again when I was in England, I after the first man was Ken Brook, but also I went to Davenport, Alan Allen, sorry. But in Davenport, I found some very old books, you know, from the Goldstone age and all that. And I found some of the Al Baker books, booklets, you know,
Wow.
for nothing. It was very cheap. And for instance, if you want to talk about thread, I mean, we are talking Finjon, but Al Baker was a complete revelation. And I have all of the books from Al Baker. Now you have the big compilation and wonderful book from Todd Carr.
Yeah.
But really, Al Baker invented so many things. We only know now most of the magicians, they know Al Baker for the mental side
Hmm.
trick. But he had really a lot of what I call the indirect thread, you know,
So that's one of the things I want to talk to you about is it's
yeah.
so funny when I read your book because I read a trick as I have no idea how that could work. And
Mhm.
it's always thread, you know, it's always, no, not really, but it's always,
Oh,
it
yeah.
feels like it's like a thread and it's a thread used in a way I've never thought to use a thread ever. It wouldn't have even crossed my mind. For me, I think thread, it's levitation, it's things moving. Like, so talk to me about that. How do you, you know, I don't even know where to start on it. When you're problem solving, how do you even think of using thread? How is that a tool for
No,
you?
I think it goes, you know, in French, we have what we call friends. Friends. What is a friend?
Yeah,
And in French, it say ami.
I mean,
So it's an ami for me. There is no way to translate that, but it's what I call magical, invisible, magical friends. You know, to help us.
mm,
I can't
mhm.
translate it.
No,
It
but that
works
makes
only in
sense.
French.
That makes sense.
So the first thing is to find a new trick or whatever. And this is from just watching everything on a different angle, you know, or any object you see, you know, you can ask yourself, okay, what is made for this? I mean, a pencil is made to write, a hammer is made to have to boom, 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 to nail something. And then you can think, what else can we do, or what you can do with that, you know, think the opposite, okay, and then maybe you find, I mean, you can give me any object and we can start this. Give me
Here,
an
lip
object,
balm. I
whatever.
have lip balm. Like
Lip balm, okay, say okay,
I saw it on my desk.
okay. So what you do with that normally,
You
you
put it on your lips.
okay. So what can be the, and you do this to make your lips not dry.
Exactly.
Exactly. But imagine now you say now this, if I put on your lips or on my lips, maybe I have no more mouth. My lips are gone. Yeah. That's the opposite of
Right.
and maybe now you it looks stupid, but if you go to one back to Jeff McBride when he removed his face, that
Mm.
then it can be the start of something, you know. And you can do this to a spectator. As soon as I put balm on your lips, you can't open your mouth. It's like it's glue, you know. And you can have another balm to unglue, you know. Uh, you know, it just think anything, be free. And then after you start to say, okay, that's funny ideas. How can I do that? And may I use I don't know, instant glue, staging? may I use, I don't know, a thread? Maybe I can put an invisible thread to so he can't open his mouth. I don't know. Or put a gimmick, a fake. So you list all your different friends, and most of the time, bing, one is going to click. But it's a very good list to have. I mean, what's a list of your unknown weapons? And now we have magnets, we have dope, we have thread, we have memory metal, I mean, we have reels. We have many of them.
Wow. So
So
that's
and you
basically,
have thumb tip, of course.
yeah.
You have thumb tip.
So that's what like the creative process really looks like for you is you take maybe an object or something and then you start thinking of what could it do that's different, what could it do that's the opposite, and then you make a list
Yeah,
of how you could do that thing.
yeah. It's kind of course, that's the basic. But now for instance, I see behind you, you have the pipe from Magritte.
Yeah.
But Magritte is full of inspiration for a magician, I think, or any Dali or any
Yeah.
painter can be, but especially all the surrealist painters. It's huge inspiration for us. It, for instance, in Dali's work, you have the clock, the
Yeah.
soft clock.
Yeah.
I mean, the soft clock is something we have never done this in magic, but it can be done really to take a clock and it become like a slinky thing or whatever and back to normal and stop to the chosen time. I don't know.
So you must have notebooks full of ideas that never
Oh yeah.
came to
Oh
anything.
yeah. Oh
And
yeah.
you keep everything? You keep all the notebooks?
One of the problem is that before I had notebooks and I went to the workshop and I started to open one and say, okay, now because it's funny to take notes, but then the problem is that now we have this we have
Yeah.
font, so you any note they go there, but I have hundreds of notes, but it's so easy to stack them that now it's more difficult to take one and go to the workshop, and that's why sometimes I like to take one wing completely off and go to my workshop and try things, because on my way of thinking, the more I can play and try, and that's how it works. It goes.
Talk to me about when you say a workshop. Are you using that word like a metaphor, or you physically have a room with your magnets
No,
and
no, I
color
have
thread?
I have really a workshop. It's a mess, yeah, because I'm messy, but I know where are my things and I try this. Very often I have the idea, I do it doesn't work. Oh shit, why? And then I have to compromise a little bit, pop, pop, pop. And then it works or not. But quite often it works. Yeah.
Well, obviously at this point you've done it so much that you're like, okay, oh, okay, I see
Yeah.
it with red. Okay, it will work. I get the idea of it. I want to
No, no,
talk
that's for sure.
I want to talk about sort of an interesting version of this topic, which is magic with objects. I think for
Yeah.
me, in my journey, I did some mentalism, I did some card magic, and then at some point I realized that, I really need to do magic with stuff, with objects, with things. Like that's what people want to see. They don't, maybe not just card tricks, maybe not just mentalism. And all of a sudden, I felt that I was looking out in magic books and it's a very small subject. I mean, there's people that talk about it, but it's not the biggest subject is magic with objects and magic with things. And that's what really led me to your books because it's all things, ropes and locks and
Mhm.
crazy stuff. Talk to me about how you think about magic with objects, because sometimes you use objects where maybe it's natural, but it's a really clever jump, like for example, the mic cable. But then sometimes you do the card manipulation with boxing gloves on it. Boxing gloves, it doesn't come from anywhere. It's not, nobody thought, there's no reason for a boxing glove. So talk to me about how you think about using objects, or it's just whatever tickles you.
Again, it's being curious about things, and anything you see, how can you bring it to magic? You mentioned the boxing gloves. The boxing glove, I saw in France, who had a huge genius guy, comedy guy. His name was Coluche. He was the most well-known comedian in France for a decade, and more than a decade. And he killed himself in a crash car accident. It was the guy was so well known. He went for president, the real president, just for fun. But they started not to laugh, the real politic guys, because he had too many votes possible. So it was terrific. But when he was very young, he did something with boxing glove, nothing to do with magic. He was playing violin with boxing gloves. So he had the violin and the other, and he was playing. I'm quite sure he was not using any trick really. He was just, but he was playing just for, and he was dressed nearly as a clown, and he was playing the violin with the boxing gloves. And then, in fact, in my mind, I said, shit, what can I do magically with boxing gloves, And my first thing was to do, because it's so funny to have boxing gloves, to do something beside boxing, that was my idea. So the first thing I wanted to do was a complete act with boxing gloves. Maybe one of the first thing was to have a floating ball, to cover the floating ball. And when the ball goes on top of the silk, like a zombie ball, it's a boxing glove, and it starts to hit me, Shit. So I fight with this. It's not a ball anymore. It's a boxing glove. Boom. And then the second boxing glove appeared in my other hand, and so I am the winner. That was the idea, And then I took a big silk, I cover, and I started to light a cigarette. And I was doing the cigarette in silk, with my thumb from the boxing glove, just getting, and then I said, why not to do card manipulation? And I started, and first I had really like the John Cornelius vanishing nickel, I wanted with a thread to make the card vanish and reappear. And then I said, but it's stupid because I can fake the gloves, of course, And that's how I started, And then I was showing this to my friend Christian Fechner and say, that's great, but keep the manipulation card. That's it. You don't need the complete act with it. So that's how it developed, just by watching this guy doing, what can I do with this,
Wow.
Not to copy him at all, but to use this because the prop is funny,
Is that how many of the objects that end up in your act are there because you think, it sounds like a couple of both this conversation and the conversation about creativity sort of sound like it starts with, what do I do with this? What is the object?
Sometimes it's a command, because when I was doing a lot of trade show or thing like that, I never did a lot of trade shows, but when I was doing that, people went with a new product and said, do something with that, and could be a new printer, could be a caterpillar, could be, you have no idea, and then you need to do things. So because you need to do, you do it,
What
you know.
about creativity in presentation? About what it is that you talk about or how it is that you present it. How do you think about that?
This I don't know. I have, I think, a good sense of humor, and I think I'm pretty funny guy, so it helps. I've seen a lot of very good inventors or so-called inventors, but they are not funny or they don't know how to present really. So it's much more difficult for them. I think really I'm again, even now, I feel like I'm a boy, a young boy. I mean, I'm a baby, I'm playing with my tools, with my toys. Yeah, I just turned this year. I turned 70. But for
Wow.
me, it's like
Congratulations.
I'm 15. In my mind. It's like wow.
I want to talk more about the presentation because I
Yeah.
think that it's interesting to be able to get every part of this process from how you do it. So I think the creativity part is very clear. Starting with an object that excites
Yeah.
you or interests you and just playing and playing with it. Then you say, okay, I have this object, I have this trick, I think it's really interesting. Do you write? Do you write in terms of what you're going to say? Like, do you write a script?
No, I never did that. I never script really, but I was scripting in my mind. Very early, I was thinking, oh, I will talk about this topic or this or that, and I was taking the underground or the bus or whatever, and I was blah, 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 repeating the where I wanted to go, and imagining the moment where I will be in front of the audience. But the first time, it was just wow, you know. And then if you have the chance to walk and more and more and more, after two, three, four times, you have think the clink, or you forget that, and it doesn't take long before, for me, it just kind of fall in place. And that's about the pattern, Also, was an American magician I've never met. He was dead before I came to the Magic Castle, but his name was Lou Derman. And he said at the time in the 60s, 70s, he said, when you walk, tape, tape your pattern, tape
Yeah.
what your show, tape it. He was not talking about filming. It was just about the sound. And you will know why they laugh right there. Why they don't laugh? Why? And every day, after every show, he was just listening to the last show. And I'm sure I know that people like Copperfield they still do that. They
Of
film
course.
every show, they debrief after, and that's a way you know how to improve very very fastly. And
Um,
now it's so easy. It's so easy with your, with your phone. You can film you, but that's so important because the best ideas for me happen by chance one day. Boom. Especially if you work with people, if you work with assisting spectators, they one day they found something. They do something by chance. Wow! And you have to keep this if you don't note it, if maybe at the end of the act you say, ah, shit, he did something funny, I don't remember now. So the more you can tape or record, the best it is to keep this moment, and try to react it after.
it's helping me get a full picture of what it looks like, thinking about an object, putting down the notes of what it could do, working in the workshop. Once you have
Yep.
something that sort of looks like it works, you mentally map out how you're presenting and speaking, and then you put it on stage and record it two or three or four times, and now you know what needs to be
Oh
changed
yeah.
and tweaked.
Yeah, what I really don't like at all, is when you realize that the magician talking to you is reciting something.
Mm,
Hate that. It's not my. Some people they do it well,
yeah.
but most of the time, I don't like that. I much prefer when it looks spontaneous, like they invent on the spot.
You
And
know,
I had that also has to be short. Short. If you remember Al Goshman, it was it was the school of being short. Say go, gone, too late. It was not complete big sentence. It was boom, boom. It's right. The rhythm. The
are you
rhythm
talking
is the
about
most
are
important.
you talking about the trick needs to be short or the presentation needs to be short?
The pattern. If you have pattern, it has to be boom sentences. No big blah 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 blah. No big stories.
Mm.
I don't think so. My also I have some heroes. You were talking about hero. One man I really love to watch, and for me, a master of rhythm is George Carl. George Carl is a
George Carlin.
big clown. He's not a magician,
Yeah.
but he was doing the Crazy Horse for many years, and nobody could go after this guy. Nobody. He had to finish the show.
George Carl.
Carl, yes, with a
Carl.
C,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Carl. Yeah, George Carl was a very unique clown. If you go on YouTube, you will find his
Yeah.
act. He had different acts, but it ends. That's where I get the microphone idea because
Mm.
his whole act is to get tangled with the cable of the mic. He's doing no magic, but it's it's very difficult to describe the act. But he has problem with everything. He's clumsy, as you can be clumsy, but in such a funny way. And when I saw him, I say, what can I do with a microphone being magical, you know? And not copying George Carl, of course. And about talking, one hero for me is a pianist. He was a huge, huge star in Denmark for many years. He died very, very late, and but he was. I knew after, but if you know Fred Capps,
Of course.
great Fred Capps, but Fred Capps took a lot from him talking about talking. His delivery, the way he was talking, was really influenced by Victor Borge, another big guy. So if you take all the best, all these big guys are your heroes. They inspire you.
Yeah. I want to talk about a little bit more about this idea of creativity, but in a different lens, which is, a lot of times you see magicians, myself included, that will do, let's call it the classics, and but they look like the classics. You see cups and balls maybe with cups and balls. It's not with shoes and lemons. It's with cups and balls. And you see a card trick and it's just a card trick, maybe with a presentation. There's some magicians who I speak to that they maybe whether they're talking about other people or they're talking about themselves, they say they don't like this. It needs to be original. It needs to be unique. It needs to be special. Do you feel that? Like, do you feel that you only do stuff on stage that you created or you came up with? Or do you think that's the way it should be or you don't care?
Since I was very young, I had the love to fool magician.
Mm,
I love that. I love this that idea. To do maybe a standard effect, but with a new method, just to fool them, like a sneaky boy, like a bad guy. No, 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 it's not that. And most of my magic, in fact, I go back to a normal trick, except the method is different. And I started when I had the chance to have access to the tarbell, the complete tarbell. When I was 17, I bought a complete set of the tarbell at the time. The first thing I did was to read the effect not the explanation.
Mm.
And it's still something you can do. I mean, you read the effect and say, okay, I have to find a solution for me. How can I do that? Because now, that's one of the problem we have now is that we see something on internet, wow, and you click, you buy the explanation right now, bing bing, and okay, what next? So you have no time to think how it could work. You just jump to the solution and then to the next trick. And that's not the way to go, I think. But
Spend a lot of.
some of the
Oh.
tricks really are. And also, we forget that we have to try to forget how it works. For instance, one of the very first trick I was happy with is to buy the China sticks. I
Mm-hmm.
was I remember I was sick in bed and my mom come came back from Mayette with a set of Chinese sticks, the small version. And I had ideas how it could work. When I saw the real explanation, wow, maybe for the first time I say, this is clever. This is completely clever because everybody is thinking must be a thread or something. No. And so we all know how it works. But I always say, okay, now if we don't know how it could work in a new way. And it's the same for the Chinese sticks, it's the same for the linking rings, can be the same for the cups and balls, and etc. etc. Forget the normal trick and try to find something new. Sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes the old method is the best and still the best. For instance, when I found my way to do the lasso rope, the card, I was really thinking first to have a very complex machine inside the hat, like a rat trap, kind of making the knot. And I was very good friend at the time with Jeff Busby from America,
Mm-hmm.
and I was working since 1 month on the thing, and it was not really working well, and it was I had the big machine in the hat and all that. And Jeff told me, I hope Gaetan it's not something very complex like a collector workshop prop or very expensive. Say no, no, of course not. And it was
Yeah,
completely.
of course.
And so in the night, say, shit, must be a simple way. And then I found that I could cut the hat and just put my finger inside and make the trick work. And that's it. Like we go back to it's very difficult to find something simple. That's the most difficult. It's quite easy to find something very electronic or very, very elaborate, but to cut down to the essence of the trick, that Vernon was always saying, if you need 3 moves to do a trick, it's good. If you need only 2, it's better. And if you get rid of the last one, you have a miracle. And so it's the same with any trick.
Wow.
Go to the simplification.
Yeah. The least that you can do.
It's not easy to be simple. It's not easy to be simple.
What's the quote? I wrote you a paragraph because I didn't have the time to write you a sentence. I'm getting it. I'm saying the quote wrong, but it's something like that. I wrote it in a paragraph because I didn't have the time to write it in one sentence.
Okay.
Let's talk. We talked a bit about the inspiration for the boxing gloves and the inspiration for the microphone cord with the scissors. I want to hear about how the pamplemousse trick came to be. How did
Oh,
that come to be?
oh, that's a funny one. That's a very funny one. In fact, I was working. I always loved the canary in
Yeah,
the canary and the orange and the
yeah,
pamplemousse because I saw Richard E. Jr. many years ago at the Olympia doing that, and I said, "Wow, that's beautiful trick." And my first idea was to use a blender, a grinder, So one card chosen, and I put the card with some water in the blender, minus one corner. Then I cut orange, and the kiwi, and then the pamplemousse. And then my idea was to grab the bowl, full of all that liquid, and say, now watch, 1, 2, 3, shoom. And I throw the thing in the air, and the liquid, when it fall back, it's back to the pamplemousse. So 100% visual, shoom. But I bought 10 blenders. It was leaking, and I never went through. And then I was working. I said, I'm sure there must be a solution. I have to find something, and I was working on the problem. And then at the time I was in Las Vegas, and Kevin James, my good friend, so good friend, Kevin, told me, "Oh, Gaetan, I bought 2 tickets for you tonight. You have to go see this guy. His name is Gallagher." Say, Gallagher, who is that? And I was with my girlfriend at the time. And so he said, "Oh, I don't." He's doing funny thing with watermelons and things like that. So okay. And so we arrived for the show, and the room start to be dark, and I asked, "Have you?" I tip the maitre d', I tip him. I say, "You have a front row or something nice?" "Yeah, of course." And we're really nearly at the first table. And during this, I see the people, they are like wearing like a raincoat. I say, what is that? What's going on there? And it starts. And the guy, the Gallagher hunter, is like an old hippie. You know Gallagher?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he has like a big frisbee, in a bucket. He said, "Hello, guys, how are you tonight?" Shoom, and he throws the first frisbee, and the frisbee is filled with water, so he just shoom, putting water all over the room. And he has not one frisbee, he has 10 of them in the bucket with ice water. And every time I say, "Oh my God, what is this show?" And at the end of the show, he has smashed, he has a big hammer, and he smashed pamplemousse, he smashed watermelon, he smashed burgers and mayonnaise and ketchup. You can't walk on the room. You sleep on mayonnaise and everything. And everybody is laughing, is laughing so hard. And during that night, I was experiencing the power of smashing food. It's very bad taste, it's whatever, but it's funny,
It's funny.
and it gives you energy. And at that time, I say, I want to find again this kind of energy, So I have to shop, not to cut nicely. I have to shop the thing, whatever the kiwi, whatever the thing. And then I say, okay, let's forget the blender. What can I use, to make it normal? And I saw it took me a while to find a cardboard box, but that's a normal thing, a cardboard box,
Wow.
Because I don't want to enter with a dustbin or something. A dustbin has nothing to do on a stage, but a cardboard box can be on any stage, on any street, anything. It's nothing. It's not a magic prop.
It sounds like a lot of the inspiration for your magic comes from watching other performers that are not magicians.
Yeah. And can be singer, can be dancer, can be anything artistic is an inspiration. And then after you have to bring your own craziness or knowledge of magic and make it your own. Yes, of course, of course.
Wow.
But if you see Charlie Chaplin, if you see Buster Keaton, all the big old timer, if you see Orson Welles, you learn a lot. Yeah.
It's unbelievable, and I think it's a good practice. Magicians often are inspired from each other, which is great, but it's really great to be inspired from things that are outside of the world of
I
magic,
think that's the key. That's the absolute key.
to get it from outside of the world of magic. One more question, and then we have some final like wrap up questions. But the sort of last question is about an act. I think that for a very long time, people would be in like, it would be the vaudeville era or whatever. So like Johnny Thompson, for example, would do the same 10 minutes. He would do the same 10-minute act for his whole career. And I think now it's like the life of the internet. So people are doing a different trick every day because they're posting it on the internet. And I think that slowly in between, now maybe a magician will have 2 acts or 3 1-hour shows or something, or I don't know. For you, what was it mostly for your career? Was it the same 20-minute act with the flowers and the cutting of the cable and the boxing gloves,
Mhm.
or was it always changing? Like, did you mostly do the same 6 or 7 tricks on stage, or did you do hundreds and maybe I only know of a few of them that made it to videos?
Well, the thing is that this act, I invented this act with a microphone and all that in 1981. Okay. And I did it for the first time in Las Vegas in the Desert Magic Seminar. And I remember always because in the room, you had Siegfried and Roy, you had Ken Brook, you had Goshman, you had Slidini, and they gave me a standing ovation. And so I was the king of the world. I was, wow, my God, that's it. And during this same convention, I did my first lecture during the convention, another standing ovation. So it was really wow. So I came back, and 1 year after, not even 1 year after, I always wanted to walk the crazy horse. So I went there, and I did my act, but was nobody in the room, only the boss. And it was like pathetic because, no reaction, of course. And he told me, yeah, okay, it's okay, but it needs to cook a little bit. So I will give you some direction. You go in Italy, you will walk and say, okay, thank you, maestro, and blah, blah. I make it short. In 93, meet again Kevin James, and we become very good friends for completely different reasons. But he's walking the crazy horse at the time.
Mm.
And I've done already my career as a magician, lecturer, and all that, and doing this act, but doing mostly close up or trade shows or things like that. And but he said, I need to go back to Vegas. Why do you don't do the crazy horse, Gaetan? You should do it. He said, I did an audition 15 years ago. 15 years ago, he said, well, okay, no. Now, show me something. You have nothing to show? Yes, I was just finishing Chan Tata Chan with Tamaris, 26 shows.
Yeah.
So I cut everything, I put together, I gave to Kevin the tape. 2 days after, I have a phone call. I will always remember, hello, Mr. Bernardin, Crazy Horse, can we meet? Wow, oh my God, yes, when? Next week, boom, 12. Okay. And I go and I see the man. He doesn't remember me, of course. And he said, can you do the trick with the 2 Chinese sticks, whatever? I've never seen this. It's very new. Okay. And the trick with the microphone and the shoe at the end? Yes. Okay. And I say, but the problem is that I need to talk. I can't do it silent. Crazy horse, you don't talk. And he said, but what I saw was in Spanish. I say, yes, because it was for Spanish TV. But he said, I don't care. It's like your music. Can you do it in Spanish? Yes, sir. And I did it. And believe it or not, but for 15 years, I did the act in Spanish with two words of English and not one word in French, you know? And when I started, I mean, Kevin get me the gig there, the first thing, you know, but Bernardin said, okay, I want to work with you, but not before next year. And Kevin had to go back to Vegas for personal family problem. And I had also problem. He said, can you fill for me? Because I have 1 year signed. I said, yes, of course, if he's okay. And I started right away, you know.
Wow.
And at first I was thinking I will do 3 months and I will be bored. I did 15 years there, you know, and not changing one thing because you when you walk the crazy horse first, you don't do 20 minutes, you do 9 minutes.
Wow.
9 minutes, twice a night, and 3 times on the weekends. And normally you do 3 months or 4 months, no more than 4 months, but it's every day. Boom, 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 boom. And then 2 months off, and so and so. And you do like 9 months first and a year and then 6 months. After we settle around 6 months a year, you know. And that was it. But I've never been bored doing that. It was everything. It was like if you do it for the first time every night. Now I have a lot of friends, or sometimes I think to my son or to my wife or to my whatever, and I say, okay, this one is for you. And as soon as I'm on stage, boom, boom, I think to the guy or to the audience, and I do it. And I've never been bored.
Wow.
But you walk seconds instead to walk a new trick. You can't do a new trick,
Right.
but you can walk. You know, it's like polishing.
Whatever. Yeah. Wow. So that must have been, I don't think I even knew that you worked for 15 years at the Crazy Horse.
But you know, it was not full 15 years.
No,
As
but
I told
nine
you,
months a year, like,
yeah, 9 months and then 6 months. Yeah, yeah.
So that must have been not only amazing to perform and sharpen the act, but also really refreshing that you sort of have your daytime available to play. You know, you have
Oh
your
yeah,
daytime available to work
oh
on
yeah,
magic and create and play, and that's
sure.
fantastic. What an
Yeah,
amazing
no,
path.
that was the thing. Yeah, no, but I replaced, in fact, Tom Mullica.
Mm,
Tom Mullica left the Crazy Horse, but I saw Tom. He did the Crazy Horse. He did 3 years because he wanted to raise money to open his pool bar in Las Vegas,
yeah.
and he did. But he had not a really good time. But I saw the act when he started, and I told Tom, if you want to, I can have you visit Paris, and we can mention. Yes, but nearly it was Crazy Horse, small flat, having cheese and dinner, and that's it, and back and forth. And every 3 months, I was going to spend one night with them. Uh, and in fact, I saw the evolution. In 3 years of Crazy Horse, your act rocket like,
Of course.
and his act went from very good to wow. Yeah, really.
Unbelievable. What an amazing gig that you got, an amazing story, and really helpful for us listening to better understand how to create
Uh-huh.
and how to make and how to, get inspired from other artists. I think it's fantastic.
Oh yeah, definitely, definitely.
We are getting towards the end of the podcast. There's three final questions. The first is
Mhm.
the endless change. So, in order to keep the podcast going on forever, each magician is asked to recommend another magician that would be really good for this type of conversation. So, who is someone who you think would be really, really good for this type of conversation that I have not interviewed already? Maybe you don't know, and B, that you can help put us in contact.
Oh, I'm sure you have him on your list, but I wanted to mention his name many times, especially because of George Carl, but Charlie Fry.
Oh, that's a great one, and I've never interviewed him. That's fantastic.
You know, Charlie Fry was very, very friend with George Carl, and in fact, George Carl died in his arm. In fact, in the
Oh my
hospital,
gosh.
and Charlie has all the costume, and really took a lot of inspiration. I mean, we are boss. As soon as we talk about George, we are in tears and in happiness at the same time because he knew him very, very well. I
That's
only
awesome.
saw him a few times. Mhm.
That's a great one. My next question is about modern magic. You know, you've seen magic change in many ways from smelling old books to now PDFs and everything in between. What's one thing you like about magic right now? And what's one thing you don't like about magic right now?
You know, I'm a little bit not afraid because you have not to be afraid of a new thing on the market. But of course, there is new kind of magic like the Instagram magic or TikTok magic. This this sometimes I watch a lot all this because sometimes you have beautiful ideas. Most of them, some very good ideas, they don't have to explain. I don't know why they want to explain everything, but
Mm,
it's true also that people forget that. The only thing is that more and more you have people doing this kind of thing where they don't have an audience or a real audience, and it changed the world. Because for me, my greatest pleasure is to work for people,
of
not
course.
for the screen. So this is a thing. Okay, maybe you can make a lot of money doing that and become a millionaire in a rather easy way, maybe. But the fact to work for real people is something is such a source of pleasure that really I hope all these people one day will come to real show,
That's great.
because there is nothing better than to do close up for a few friends, but real close up,
Yeah.
whatever, and not just for the camera angle or whatever.
And what's one thing you like about magic right now?
Always discovering new things, and especially in the old books. When I found a new old book that's, oh my God, or a new crazy crazy man of magic. Many I'm thinking to write a book about the different crazy guy of magic, in because every country they have at least one or two or three, but not so many, and most of the people, they don't know these guys. But I start to have a pretty good list of unknown.
I like it. The crazy guys of magic. I really like
Oh
it.
yeah.
And the last question is plugs. Where can people find you? Where can people find your stuff, your books, your projects, maybe see you perform? Where can they see
Well,
any of that?
the truth is, right now you don't find them very easily, but I'm revamping all that. So in the next 6 months, I will tell you at the time. I will call you and say,
Great.
now it's ready. But I have some new products on the way, and I can tell you more now. But yes, yes,
Okay, well, I'm
and
very
it will
excited.
pack flat and play big.
Good, good. Well, I'm very excited. Gaetan, thank you so, so much for doing this. This was an absolute pleasure. Amazing to hear about your history and how you think about this and better understand it.
I'm so sorry for my broken English, but
It was perfect.
the okay.
It was totally perfect. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you to everybody for listening and being with us. This was a blast, and we will see you all next Thursday.
See you.
Well, there you have it. I hope you liked the episode, and I hope, of course, that you learned something. Now is your chance to tell a friend and spread the word. The podcast is back. That's right, Discourse in Magic, your favorite magic podcast, I hope, I guess. I don't know. I don't care. It's back, and I'm glad that you're here. So please tell a friend. It would mean the world. I don't care where you tell them. I don't care how you tell them. But if you tell at least one magician that you know that this podcast is back, I would appreciate it so much, and it would mean the world. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're doing amazing. Thanks for being here, and I will see you next Thursday. Ciao.